everybody, Richard Tromans here again, Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're doing another product walkthrough. This time, interestingly, a product or suite of products created by Linklaters and Linklaters Nakhoda in particular. We're looking at ISDA Create, which you've probably seen written about in Artificial Lawyer. To tell us a bit more about it and how it works is Doug, Shilpa, and Heather. Hi, everybody. People probably know Shilpa already, but let's just start with you. If you could just introduce yourself, and then we'll do Heather and Doug.
Right. So Shilpa Bhandarkar, the CEO of Nakhoda, and Nakhoda is Linklaters legal tech startup. So we're a little startup in a big firm building really cool products for our clients.
And just so the audience knows, you actually built ISDA Create.
Yes.
Not just you by yourself.
Not me by myself. My coding skills are subpar, but we at Nakhoda built ISDA Create and Create IQ ourselves. So it's proprietary technology that we've built. Obviously working very closely with our lawyers and with our clients. So we've had design help and input, but the development is all ours.
Okay, fantastic. And Heather?
Hi, I'm Heather Smith. I'm a senior attorney on the finance team in New York, and I'm obsessed with everything technology and everything ISDA. So this is a perfect place for me. You'll see.
All right, fantastic. And Heather will be giving most of the walkthrough. With us is Doug, who's also going to do the intro to what ISDA is all about. ISDA Create is all about. Doug?
Hi, Richard. Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Donahue, a derivatives partner in New York at Linklaters, and really excited to show everyone a little bit of ISDA Create.
Well, let's start with that. For people who don't know much about ISDA, don't know much about derivatives, and particularly haven't read about this tool yet, could you just tell us a bit more, give us a bit more context?
Sure thing, Richard. So first, maybe starting with ISDA. ISDA is the Derivatives Global Trade Association. So everyone who trades derivatives around the globe really uses ISDA documentation. It's the standard used throughout the market. And that's like a nice, really nice, I think, segue into the idea of ISDA Create. So the idea of ISDA Create is to really take the ISDA documentation that is standardized to a certain extent because everyone starts with the same form and put it into an online negotiation platform, right? So we as lawyers in particular really spend a lot of time honestly pushing paper around. And a lot of that time is not, in my opinion, well spent. So we've thought about for quite a long time. I think as between Heather and I, we probably have somewhere close to, and this is scary to say, 40 years of experience in this business. And as we've kind of gone through our career, you know, we've identified things that really we can bring more efficiency to. And this is a great example of that. And what we've done on ISDA Create is we've essentially digitized a number of ISDA's documents, not all of them yet, but a number of them. And what we'll show you today is this flagship document, the ISDA Master Agreement, and how we've digitized it. And the really cool thing about the ISDA Master Agreement is we've also embedded another product of ISDA's, the ISDA Clause Library. And what the ISDA Clause Library is essentially a library or a catalog of all commonly used clauses. Because while the documentation of ISDA is standardized, meaning there are pre-printed standard forms that everyone starts with, they are highly negotiated and highly sophisticated contracts. So what we've done with the clause library is provide people with, as I said, a catalog of the most frequently used provisions and clauses, and embedded that so that they're all available at a click in the platform, and Heather will show you some of that. So that's all the cool or interesting lawyer stuff. There's a whole other side of this that I think is really interesting, which is the data piece, right? What we're doing on this platform is really capturing an unbelievable amount of data. And it's the sort of thing where if we had an unlimited amount of time as lawyers, we might write everything down, but that's just not realistic. And the really nice thing about ISDA Create is it's capturing everything automatically in the background without us doing any additional work. So it's capturing all of the management information around the negotiations, so how long it takes, what's outstanding, and so on. But it's also capturing all of the commercial terms. And as we know, the world we live in is a bit data crazed. So having all this additional data at large financial institutions and small financial institutions, we're really convinced that it will allow these institutions to unlock additional value. With that, I'm going to stop talking because for me, seeing is believing. So I'd like to hand it over to Heather to get to the demo.
Fantastic. Thank you, Doug. Great introduction. Thanks, Heather. If you could just take us through some of the key steps and perhaps, almost walking through it in the way that perhaps a client might walk through it. That would be really great. Thank you.
There's nothing I love to do more. And so when Doug talked about 40 years experience, I actually used to use a manual typewriter when I first started my career. So this is like a whole other level of excitement for me. So I apologize, everyone, if I look too excited. So what you're looking at here is the dashboard of ISDA Create. We call it the heart of the platform, and it's divided into two sections. The bottom part is like a table, a very sophisticated spreadsheet, which the developers love when I call it a spreadsheet, but it's very sophisticated and has all the information for an individual negotiation. The top part, which is the part that I really love, because in my past life, I actually managed a team of lawyers that negotiated the documents for a large institution, is it's the transparency, it's the client information, it's where is the negotiation. In a negotiation on ISDA Create, we think of it as 3 stages: invitation, negotiation, and finally execution. And it's represented in these 3 color wheels, right? 3 colors in this wheel right here. And by clicking any one of these wheels, you can very quickly see and sift the information on the sophisticated spreadsheet on the bottom to kind of see where things stand in any individual negotiation or a group of negotiations on the platform. Similarly, if you have a group of lawyers or a team of negotiators working on any negotiations, you can very quickly filter to make sure, hey, everyone's working well. You can see the 3 colors again are appearing. Some are executed, some are moving. And by clicking any of these names, again, that sophisticated spreadsheet, that analytics table at the bottom sorts that information. And finally, if you can see over here on the right side, this box is time elapsed since last negotiation. This is really where it provides information for how long has it been since the last turn in any relevant negotiation, or how long has it been since I've sent that relevant contract. One of the things, and Doug talked a little bit about it in the pushing paper piece of the derivatives practice through well, it's more than 40 years, but through the last 40 or 50 years is kind of the status. Where is it? Where did it go? You'll hear a lot of clients, buy side and sell side, saying, hey, I sent my contract. Where is it? Where does it stand? All of this information here on this dashboard provides that information at just a click of a button, and it sorts the information. You can see quickly where it is. Is it with my counterparty? What stage? Is it with me? What stage? So this is really the dashboard, but what I want to show you is the library of all the different contracts that we have on the platform now. So by clicking the tab at the top, it's going to provide the information for all the currently digitized documents published by ISDA that are on the platform. So you'll see here we divided into packs. The first pack is the ISDA initial margin documents. This was the first group of documents that ISDA decided to put on the platform in conjunction with Linklaters Nakhoda, because this was the time when there was a key need in the industry with a regulatory deadline to complete these documents in an expeditious and efficient way. So these were the first ones. There's about 23 documents there. The next pack, which we're going to see a big uptick in the next couple months, are the ISDA interest rate reform documents. It's all going to be tied to various LIBOR, IBOR initiatives throughout the industry. The next group is the 2-page ISDA amendment agreement. This is based on the ISDA 2003 published document and enables counterparties that don't have some documents on the platform to use the amendments in a variety of ways to make substantive amendments to legacy documents, as well as we see a large use on the buy side for clients wanting to add various underlying principles in the asset manager and hedge fund space. Lastly, and this is the one we're going to really drill down on today, which is my absolute favorite, I'm an ISDA nerd too, if you didn't know that, is the ISDA master agreement with the embedded ISDA clause library. Doug talked a little bit about it here. So you'll see in here there are 4 documents. 2 of them are the pre-printed documents. There's a 1992. Yes, I've used that. The 2002, and then the 2 different libraries. So I am actually going to open it on the screen. Hold on. Shrink it down to get to the new invitation button. Our faces are under the invitation. Hold on one second. Okay, so I'm going to click the new invitation button. It's usually easier than that, but you can say I have some tech challenges in my own life. So I'm going to click new invitation, super simple. And what it's going to do then is it's going to bring me to another page. You'll see it says presets. There's a lot of terms that we use on the ISDA Create platform that are substitute for, I call it the old fashioned way, but I say that I'm dating myself every time. Preset is another way of saying template. But a template is very different. In the old fashioned days, when a lawyer looks for a template, they sift through a bunch of Word files, they open the template, they hope in large organizations that no one has actually accidentally amended it, and they open a template and then they modify it and they send it out. What's really cool about ISDA Create are templates here. First of all, they can't be modified once you've created them. They can be created at any time in a negotiation. And the best part is once you've created them, by clicking a button, you're going to pre-populate the agreement with the last place that you started. We're going to select a bespoke one. I'm going to open up the screen bigger, and it's going to now open up the screen, and you're going to see, we call it the election page of ISDA Create. Great. Okay, here we are. So this time I've selected a blank preset, so nothing is going to be filled out. But what you see on the screen, it's divided into two sections. The right section is an HTML version. I like to sound really smart with like the tech terms as an aging lawyer, you know. On the right side is the HTML schedule for the 2002 master agreement. It is identical to the published form, the published printed form you can download on the ISDA website. What's different is you see a couple colors on here. What these colors indicate is this is where the Nakhoda developers have digitized the form. What that means is they have created options that users can do to draft their form in, we call it the new, better way on ISDA Create. And this is seen on the left side of the screen on the elections. So you'll see here there's a series of boxes. These are called elections with names that are tied and linked to the various portions of the schedule on the right side that have a group of buttons or drop-down menus where users can use to draft their relevant schedule. I'm going to click this little 3-arrow button on the top side because what is also exceptional about this particular document is that we've embedded the ISDA clause library. In any document on the platform, when we're showing you either a Reg IM doc or an interest rate doc, there are a number of provisions that when we click these buttons, you'll see where a user needs to make relevant elections to complete their agreement, send it to a user, and then eventually complete their negotiation and execute the document. What's super cool about this particular document is we've taken that other product that Doug talked about, the ISDA clause library, which is a series of clauses that the industry agreed on both the buy side and sell side. And it took quite a long time with, hey, it's not just those light blue pieces of information on the ISDA schedule that we need to finish the negotiation. There's also all these other provisions that we all normally see and use to get to the business objective for our relevant contract when we're negotiating. What does that mean? It means that it provides us with a lot of other options to draft clauses that are not just simply bespoke, hey, lawyers using a keyboard and typing information, but these are clauses that not only did the industry create and approve and typically use, but then we Linklaters and the Nakhoda team working with ISDA could digitize these clauses to create more opportunities to create structured data when we use these agreements. So I'm going to show you how that works right now, and I'm going to draft a few clauses the new way. Okay, so typically when you do an identification of party on anything, you select what type of party you are. There's two ways to be a party on ISDA Create. You could be a principal. So in our case, we're Linklaters. You pull down a drop-down menu, select Linklaters, and it automatically populates it on the right side. You are given opportunities in some places to type other information that you would want, or you could choose to remove it. You'll see that that changes on the right side. But let's show you what happens when we create an agent ISDA. This means this is a multi-party ISDA where an agent is executing an agreement on behalf of other entities. This is when things get much, much simpler than the way we used to do it. Again, I call mine the old fashioned. By clicking a button here that says identification of agent that executes an ISDA, you'll see that the language is much more sophisticated on the right side. And now we have more options to choose. Do you call yourself an investment manager? Yes, I do. Are you executing an ISDA for a whole group of clients? Let's say, yes, we are. By clicking the button here, you've automatically triggered a response on the platform that says, hey, you can upload a variety of clients using this Excel spreadsheet. And on the bottom of this document, that appendix is already waiting for you to do that. But let's draft a few more substantive clauses and see how else this helps. Creation of umbrella agreement is another provision that we typically use when we're creating an asset manager. Again, we'll see how simply this ties, and we call it inter-election logic, which means the logic of the platform helps you work with what you've already drafted. In this one, we'll select again each entity in Appendix 1. You'll see the language is drafting very quickly, and the other party is Linklaters, in this case, Party A, and the provision is drafted. Now let's go down to a more substantive provision that we always have to fill in for an ISDA agreement. Typically, you type in whatever you need to do on an agreement on Word, or back in my day, maybe on a typewriter. By clicking these buttons, you're making drafting decisions. You'll see on the right side for 3 events of default and 1 termination event. That is a very typically used clause in any ISDA negotiation. What you don't see is each time I'm clicking a button as a user, is I am actually giving the computer and the platform structured data information, because the ISDA clause library, when it was drafted on paper, took time to create these reference terms or data terms or drafting variables that look and feel very differently than we would think of a normal clause. It no longer says none, none, none. The computer's saying, hey, that's SPEC_ENT_version 1. Or if I said any affiliates, it's saying SPEC_ENT_V2. So every time I click these buttons, I'm giving the computer more information that when I finish my execution or my draft at a later time, I can go back and run a report, have an API that's plugged directly into my systems, that I can always have that information, be it for a risk function, a collateral function, for another document, or however I feel I need to use that information at a later date. In the old days, when there were bankruptcies or a large market event in the industry, users had to go back to their documents, pull them out, and read them one by one. This is going to remove that need in the industry and give lawyers a lot more time to work smarter, more efficiently, and actually have time to do other jobs. I love this part.
Okay, chip in for a second here, Heather.
Sure.
So Richard, I think the screen we have up and what Heather's just been through really, for me at least, highlights and illustrates why we have decided to build this technology ourselves, right? As you can see, Heather has been going through on the screen is not very different than what people would do, today if they weren't using this platform on Word, right? What you would be doing is you'd be typing in comments. Here you're clicking. The key for us is you're seeing exactly what's happening on the right hand of the screen. And that, again, for me, is the direct result of having our developers and Shilpa's team sit side by side with our lawyers and talking and really figuring out how are we going to help people kind of transition from the paper or Microsoft Word world to a platform like this. And what we think is key is for there to be minimal difference between process and what people do and what people see. And we think that's what we've represented here. The other point I'll just make really quickly is on the data point. And Heather went through it and gave us some of the codes. So part of the work on the clause library is really tagging every piece of data. And we've always done that, even pre-clause library on ISDA Create. The difference is we've now made those tags public, right? So in essence, if you think about it, what we're doing is we're creating a Dewey Decimal System-like list of codes and tags for all of these clauses so that all market participants, both vendors and users, can know and be able to search and mine the data in these agreements so that they can leverage it downstream.
Fantastic, really interesting, and it's great to see the product at last, because I guess I've written about it quite a bit, so it's great to see it in action. Just a couple of quick questions. First question: overall, how much time do you reckon this would save for, if there is such a thing, an average derivative contract?
So we've done some negotiations on this already, the Linklaters as an advisor, because we have functionality that allows a law firm to work on the platform on behalf of its clients. And it's easily saving 30% of our time. We think as we use it more and it's actually embedded in larger institutions, it has the potential to save much more than that, because it's not only the person using the platform, it's also then saving time for approvers who are down the line, or someone more senior who needs to approve. It saves time for the person who has to chase the person to approve. It saves time for the person, or potentially even eliminates the need to transpose information from a paper document into an electronic system, because that can happen automatically. So we've seen lots of savings so far, Richard, but I think we're at the very start of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, and this kind of connects to the second question, which is, I mean, I guess it saves an enormous amount of time when you're trying to go back to the document to check data or check certain types of clause. I mean, can we just look briefly at the dashboard, because and the data capture, because that's also another interesting aspect of this.
Sure.
I mean, that data there, excuse me, that data there, that's going to be usable in what way? I mean, we've got the negotiation stages. I can see that. That looks very handy. But what other data is it capturing that will be useful to the parties?
For me, I think about when you're managing either, say, large scale process or a large group of negotiations, it enables you to see not only workload distribution by user, right? Are people overwhelmed? Are they moving it along? You can see that the colors on the platform, even on the top part, very quickly allow you to see, I can look down and see there's 147 active and only 5 executed. So it very easily enables you to see, hey, where am I? Where is my team? Or from a counterparty's perspective, they can say, where's our counterparty? Where are our negotiations? We've sent out 125, and by clicking this button, it's sorting. You can see down here then very quickly on the analytics table, the details of all of the different parties, where you've sent them and how long that is. So it gives you the information for the flow of, a project maybe that you're undergoing in your organization, or just the regular onboarding of clients, right? The clients in the industry often look back at how their relationships work with their their dealers or their sell side clients by how quickly did you get our documents done, and this platform will give them that transparency.
Gotcha. And in terms of data that relates to the actual contract, these are the terms, this is termination, this is liability, these are exceptional circumstances, all that kind of stuff. I mean, does that get extracted out into a dashboard that's easily usable?
Yes, you can. Sorry, the little buttons on the side are hidden by us. If you click this wheel, there it goes. You'll see, I call it like under the hood of the car. When I do demos, I may have to move this over because I'm having a problem with, come here. There we go. This is really the settings page under the hood of the car on the platform. And this is where you can collect any information, all the users you have, any clients you're doing business for. And then you get down here to an audit and access log. By clicking this button, you can run a report for any accounts, any years and months for any negotiations. And then you're talking about negotiation data, Richard. This is where you can come to completed negotiations or negotiation status report and get really an overview of everything that you've done, anything in a related negotiation. And that's where, when Doug was talking earlier about the data terms, this is where you would have access to information like that, as well as any vendors or APIs that you have linked to the platform. You can click that and see that information as well.
Gotcha. No, I mean, it's fascinating. And I think one of the reasons why I'm so interested in this is stems from a conversation I had with someone who runs an AI company, who previously had worked as a consultant during the great financial crisis of 2008, 2009. And they'd gone into one of the large investment banks in New York. And part of their job was to go through all the derivatives contracts. And they asked the GC there what was in the contracts and how could they get hold of the data. And they were told, we have no idea. And it's going to take you a lifetime to get hold of that data. And he was so stunned, he actually then went on to create the company he created, because he thought there has to be a better way of getting hold of this data. So I've always been fascinated by this area. So how do people use this? If someone watches this and says, okay, this looks great, I would like to use ISDA Create, how do they get hold of it?
Easy. We have a 24-hour a day, super easy. You can call me anytime. I mean, I'll talk about it nonstop. There's limited time today, but I've got an hour 50 times a day if you want. But there is a right here. I'm going to click this little button, but you can see that there are a contact information here. There's a 24-hour support number, and that's not just when you're trying to reach us, that's after you're using the platform. And then there's the email support line. And then Shilpa, I think you have other ways as well that you guys use at Nakhoda.
Yeah, so I was going to say, if you want to use any of the documents on ISDA Create, like literally, I mean, it's the simplest thing is, ISDA Create at ISDA.org. But the platform, actually, the underlying technology any company can use for any of their own documents as well. And that's where sort of Create IQ comes in. So the underlying technology that we've built that's been so powerful for the derivatives world is equally useful if you're looking at procurement contracts, supplier agreements, NDAs, employment contracts, facility agreements. I mean, I guess your earlier point, any document where you want to make the process more efficient, which is a lot of sort of documents that we negotiate in high volumes, but also any document that has really valuable data in it that you need to see across the board. And we didn't kind of go through the beautify and stuff, but you can, using the API, you can actually take all of that information and plug it into your systems so that other parts of your business then have access to what is your exposure to XYZ XYZ suppliers, or what is your exposure to a particular currency in your procurement contract. You get all of that information in real time, right? So you'll never have that conversation again about, it's going to take you years and years and years to figure this out, because we've made it possible to do that really, really quickly.
Well, that brings us to the last couple of questions. I guess first, would you call this a CLM? I mean, I wrote an article recently. I said that you don't kind of market this as a CLM, but it kind of is a CLM in a funny way.
So you're the first person who's called it a CLM, and we had a really interesting discussion internally about it. It's a huge, it solves a huge part of that process, but I don't. It's not an end to end. This platform is very good at creating documents, helping you negotiate those documents, helping you execute those documents, and getting structured data created at source and being able to use it. To me, CLM is a lot more than that, right? This doesn't. It's not going to do what a DMS system. It's not going to do everything.
Yeah.
But what it does really, really well. And it plays to our strengths, I think, as a law firm, because what we've solved for is what lawyers are very good at doing, helping businesses use what's in their legal contracts much better, which is what we tend to have access to. But we've not solved for every single part of the CLM system, which is why we integrate and allow for API integration with other platforms.
Gotcha. And this brings us to the last point, which is the natural language processing review tools, which if I remember rightly, were quite important for, I think Heather was referring to a regulatory change a couple of years ago related to margins, which revolved, which needed a certain amount of repapering, if I remember correctly. And people were using NLP tools there to get into the data. Would this current iteration of ISDA Create effectively remove that need now? So any documents created from today onwards with that extracted data at the point of creation, you could just say, well, look, we don't need to do this great big NLP project. We've got all the key data already. You may have to spend some time sifting through that data manually, but the idea of bringing in an AI company to read these contracts is not really necessary now. I don't know. Have things changed?
So I think for a contract created on the platform, I don't see much need for an NLP provider, because all of that data will be in an electronic form that doesn't need to be read or processed. But there is, Richard, and we've been talking to a couple of NLP providers, because there are large, obviously, catalogs of legacy documents out there, right? And you touched on it before, but one of the great attributes here is that once you have a contract on this platform, it becomes infinitely easier to amend it or update it, right? So we've had clients already talk to us about bringing their legacy book of documents onto the platform. And the first thing that people say is, wow, that could potentially be a really big lift. And that's where I think the NLP providers really can help, right? Because if they can pull data from the existing legacy contracts and push it into the platform through our APIs, that hopefully will do a lot of the work of getting that legacy book onto the platform. And when we have another, regulatory event or other general event that requires mass amendments of documents, having all of that legacy book on the platform is going to make those mass amendments so much easier, right? The way the platform works now, if for any document that's on it, if you wanted to amend, you can really send out a single amendment to 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 clients at once, right? By just identifying them. So that whole process, I think, becomes a lot easier. So that's where I see, at least in the short term, the NLP providers really being one of our potential partners in this space to get the data onto the platform.
Fascinating. Well, look, I'd love to continue, but we must leave it there. But thank you very much, Heather. Thank you very much, Shilpa and Doug. Look forward to learning about the next product to come out of Nakhoda. But we'll have to leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Richard.